online. I called the hotline and spoke to a real person who taught me the skills I needed. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at yung local Filipino community, Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in. Radio every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.org.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
Totally bored? Mindlessly scrolling? Put down your phone and pick up a free youth transit pass. Youth 18 and younger ride for free. Go all the places. Do all the things. Escape the scroll at freeyouthtransitpass.com.
Women are not an homogenous group. We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
A teacher who hurt their back and got prescribed opioids. A daughter trying to cope with a loss in the family. A friend silently struggling, thinking they'll be a burden if they ask for help. People with addiction come from all walks of life, and the truth is they stand a better chance at recovery with our support. Reaching out and sharing local resources can make all the difference. Don't count them out. More people recover with support. Find more ways to help at supportaddictionrecovery.com. That's supportaddictionrecovery.com.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
Hello, everyone. This is Cliff, and I am here flying solo tonight. My usual co-pilot, Tony, is feeling a little bit under the weather. So just want to say shout out to you, my guy. I hope you feel better, and we will see you during the next episode. Now, welcome to The Unmasked Agenda, your bi-weekly slice of political commentary, analysis, and I assure you, we are not a show. We're not really a DJ. A musical show? But then again, DJ Fresh Juice next to me. That's his specialty, and also he just happens to be our program manager. So all of you out there listening, and also all of for our two guests, you'll have to forgive us because currently next door there is an event going on. And we were not notified of that. So if you hear a little bit of that feedback, our apologies in advance. Anyway, I am happy to be joined by Brenna Nendel and Diego Franco from Seattle's picket lines and Chicago's respectively, two leaders in Starbucks Workers United. Thank you for joining us on the show, y'all.
Hey, thanks for having us.
No.
Absolutely. So, Starbucks workers are on strike from coast to coast. You guys on November 13th launched your Red Cup Rebellion, an open-ended strike in 65 stores across 40 plus cities in response to a whopping over 700 alleged unfair labor practices from Starbucks management. And the union, your union, alleges that all of this has been part of an elaborate campaign to bust up the union, and that Starbucks management is spending millions to avoid just a fair contract with you guys. Is that accurate? Yes?
I mean, I would say so, yeah, personally. Just even in terms of like the way my first store that unionized Eastlake unionized, they really, like, if you look back after we successfully won our campaign and like won our election, there was so much turnover because they made the store unworkable. Like, there's nobody left before it closed who was there originally. And I think that's just an example of the way like things got so bad and are so bad that people don't want to work in the stores anymore.
So in that case, just to give our viewers a little bit of extra background, so Brenna, you are a elected strike captain and a bargaining delegate, and Diego, you are also a strike captain and bargaining delegate. So it sounds like Brenna, it sounds like it's gotten really bad for just all of the workers. But how are you two holding up? Like, how are you two taking care of yourselves? And Brenna, since you jumped in, Diego, why don't you go first, my man?
Hey, I'm doing quite well, actually. You know, a lot of preparation was going into even going out on strike. You know, we have a fund that helps cover any expenses we might have while we're not working. And frankly, I would much rather deal with the Midwest weather than having to clock into work where I'm being disrespected. So I'm actually doing pretty well.
Brenna, what about yourself?
I mean, I would definitely agree. Just in general, like, if you look at where my current store is, Elliott Drive-Thru in Seattle, it's in the Inner Bay area. And with the recent store closures, they closed First and Denny, they closed Lower Queen, and they closed Ballard Market Starbucks, which are all like the 3 stores closest to us, other than one drive-through. And so we have just been, since those closures and then put on holiday launch after that, we have been feeling like exhausted, overwhelmed, like the drive-through never stops. We can't ever catch up. And so when we were like talking about going on strike, and even when we're looking at, you know, we're having a very set schedule for picketing. We're picketing from 9 to 2 on Wednesday through Sunday, like looking forward to a consistent schedule with, like, I don't want to say guaranteed hours, but it is guaranteed hours. You're working exactly what you're signing up for. And just like having that be our only concern was like relieving. And I think overall as a store, our morale is much higher than it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, because we're not worn down by the Starbucks grind and those people calling me looking for bear cups.
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows that when you go to a Starbucks, that baristas are frequently subjected to just wild demands, right? Like, isn't it pretty normal for people to come in and say, I want a half frap, I want a half cap with a frap with this type of dressing and this type of flavoring and this amount of marshmallows in it, and make sure you shake it, stir it, say a prayer over it, you know, all sorts of things. Like, isn't that like what you guys have to deal with all the time on top of all of this?
Yeah, that's pretty typical. The company wants us to drive wait times lower, but they don't want to give us the staffing to deal with the influx of orders. They want customers to have the customability of putting whatever it is they want in their drinks. And of course, I'm going to put whatever they ordered. That's my job after all. But hey, I would like more than two people making drinks at any given point.
Right. People that actually be able to help with the load of work that you guys have to deal with on a daily basis. So I want to touch on something because I'm not that familiar with the politics in Chicago, but I know here in Seattle that Starbucks management has alleged that a lot of these closures are not due to union busting, but instead it's because of this kind of, well, it is in line with this moral panic that we've seen throughout Seattle and in many major cities in the last several years, but particularly in Seattle, around crime, right? With quotes. Like they said that they had to shut down the store in Capitol Hill near Olive Way, for example, because of crime and dropping sales, right? And it sounds like you've had to, kind of stomach that rationale. But what would you say to that? Like starting with Brenna and then going over Diego, if you have thoughts, like what would you say to their like crime and dropping sales rationale?
I mean, from my perspective, like, yes, it wasn't like specifically targeting union stores that they closed, but also the stores that are most likely to unionize are the stores that have the highest, like we call them incidents. Like whenever we have an incident, you support an incident report, submit it. And so any of the stores that had high incidents and that have like a harder workload, I think were more likely to unionize because the conditions you were working in were not the best, and usually they were mismanaged. But I would say the whole crime and like that whole era and like narrative is honestly a little misguided because Starbucks in Seattle has been closing stores for years due to like crime and being high incident and whatever. But like if you look at what happened when they closed, like there was 3 stores in Pike Street they closed. I think it was 1st and 3rd and Pike, and then they closed 5th and Pike because of like the same narrative. But where do those people go? Like we offered free bathrooms, which we don't anymore. We offered free water. We were a warm place for people to stay, and there is nowhere else for them to go. So closing those stores is only going to put more pressure on the remaining stores and the remaining businesses that are allowing people in. And it's not really solving the issue. Like we need to get to the root of the problem and not just close stores as a solution to like a fear of unhoused people just needing a place to warm up.
And Diego, what do you think?
I think the real crime that happens at these stores are customers just getting robbed of their money. Price of the coffee keeps going up. They're getting robbed of their time. They got to wait upwards of 20, maybe even 30 minutes. The first store that had unionized in Chicago closed a few years ago. And just recently in September, the second store that had unionized in Chicago also closed. Mind you, I don't know much about the first store, maybe just with the timeline in which I had organized and I became a part of this campaign. But I can tell you the second store in Chicago in a northern neighborhood of Edgewater was very active in union activity. Back in March, they held a civil disobedience protest against the company, where I and 10 other people got to participate in the sit-in, where that led to us getting arrested inside of that same Starbucks. So it goes to show you they're considering the visibility of these stores, maybe the active participation they have in union activity, and whatever they tell the public is just a way to either undermine our willingness to fight and to redirect what is truly the price of these store closures, which is a bunch of my friends losing their jobs and haven't had a job since. So
yeah. Wow. I mean, all of that sounds pretty damning of the company. And, something. So I feel like we've really built up to why you guys are on strike. But just if you could give us a play-by-play, and maybe, Brenna, if you want to start with this, and Diego also add to this from your perspective in Chicago, like, what are the events that led up to you guys deciding to take this strike action rather than, say, like you mentioned, Diego, other workplace actions like slowdowns or, walkouts or any of the other actions you've done? Like, why the Red Cup Rebellion? Why the strike?
I think as a campaign, we have been in the last year, since last December when we went on strike, we have been doing those actions when they changed our dress code unilaterally without bargaining. There was a wave of stores across the nation that did dress code walkouts, and they were in dress code violation as kind of a protest. And there's been sit-ins, there's been lots of action. And I mean, there was a rally in front of headquarters right after the roastery in Soto. The store inside headquarters got closed in the wave of store closures. And at the end of the day, Starbucks has not responded to that. And that's why we are here. We've been waiting. We're on an unfair labor practice strike. We've been waiting. We were in bargaining all last year, and now it's been basically a year, and we still don't have a contract. My store unionized in 2022. It's been a contract is the life of a contract is 3 years. We would have had we would be negotiating our second contract if we had gotten a contract right then and there. So it's been a long time, and that's why it's all accumulated into this unfair labor practice strike, because the company is the biggest union buster in modern history, and things need to change, and we need a contract right now, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, Diego, anything you want to add?
CEO makes 6,666 more times more than the average worker at a Starbucks. His salary was upwards of $96 million. He gets a private jet. Company was willing to all expense paid management retreat at Vegas this past summer. That was upwards of $86 million. Celebrity appearances, celebrity concerts. The money is there. They've probably spent more money on anti-union tactics and messaging and union busting within their stores, in the media. And I'm pretty sure the amount of money they spent fighting us is more than the amount of money we're even asking at the end of the day in our contract.
I mean, surely all of you get a private jet, like an Escalade, something. At least a Dodge Charger, right? Like every single one of you, No. Okay, well, at least you guys get to go to University of Arizona for free. Isn't that something?
I mean, it'd be nice. You go for a few semesters. You hope your hours don't get cut, so then so that you're still able to make the requirement to go, because you need to meet a minimum number of hours. But then you, as a tenured partner, you get fed into the cycle of, hey, your hours are going to get cut. You're not going to have access to the college. You're not going to have access to healthcare. And, that plays into the high turnover we see at Starbucks too. They cut the tenured people, make room for new fresh meat.
Yeah.
And that cycle kind of plays into why it's been difficult to organize on a store-by-store basis.
So that leads me to my other question. Also, hey, to my studio producer, do you mind turning it up a little bit? I can't quite hear him. Yeah, just turn our speakers up a little bit. All right. So, and don't worry, you guys are good. So let's talk a little bit about the healthcare thing, because from my knowledge, from my basic knowledge, that Starbucks is a big enough employer where they have to provide you with either some access to healthcare or a healthcare subsidy under the law, or am I just misremembering that? Like, how do they get around keeping you from access to healthcare?
Well, for any benefit, like benefits, quote unquote, at Starbucks, you have to work a minimum of 20 hours a week. And that has to translate to, I think it's 520 hours every 6 months. And if you don't meet that minimum, you don't qualify for benefits. And a large majority of partners are kept at 19, 18 hours. So they can't quite make that benefit, and they can't quite qualify for ASU Online healthcare, all those things. And that can come from them just saying, managers not saying, they're just like, the hours are there. Or it can come from, working around a college schedule, like trying to figure out how do I show up and like what works for me. And they have been making it harder and harder and harder to have an availability. Like you're required to have, I think it's like 150% the availability of your like desired hours. So you have to have like more hours available by 150% and what you want in order to even qualify for your minimum hours. And so that's just like, it's a system that they're making us work hard for, and they make it almost inaccessible to meet the benefits.
Yeah, that math doesn't really math to me. So you have to be 150% more available in order to even be able to, not apply, but even be able to request having a sufficient amount of hours to get access to healthcare. So I wonder, how do your customers feel about this? Because Diego, you mentioned that customers regularly have to wait forever for a coffee. I think all of us, the consensus is prices these days are insane, especially all the add-ons, everything like that. And then on top of that, you have a whole plethora of people who used to consider Starbucks their third place, but now they are really just kind of dipping in and dipping out. And there's more of a hostile vibe these days to having the stores being that third place. How do your customers feel about all this?
They're not happy with the rising prices. They're not happy with the wait time. And that's just for like the average customer who comes and goes. They just get their drink. They're not really one to make conversation. They just want to get on with their day. Most people show up before they go to work, before they go to school, and they just want to get on with their day. And now they got to wait 20 minutes. For a lot of my regulars who like seeing me behind the bar and they like chatting me up, kind of giving me updates on what's their life been like since I last saw them. I don't really get that. On days when I first started, I would have seen anywhere from like 8, 9, 10 people on the shift at the same time during our peak times.
Yeah.
We were fully staffed. We had people who were able to get drinks out quickly, take orders in and get them out quickly. People would have their food in a timely manner. And that just doesn't happen now. I have to run around. I do the work of 3 people. And my regulars who see that know that. And they try to find times where they can anticipate in it being slow, maybe talk to me and my coworkers, try to figure out what's wrong with this place, or even just talk about and catch up. And they don't even get to do that anymore. I think that plays in a big part of why so many people used to feel like this was a third place for them, and they just don't get that anymore. So,
So let's talk turkey. And so next question to the both of you. So if you were able to talk to those customers, the ones that you can't talk to now because you have to hurry up and you're short-staffed and you're making these drinks, if you were able to tell them why they should support the strike, given everything that's going on, what would you say to them? And Brenna, if you want to go first, and then Diego chime in, we could do that.
Yeah. I would say, we want to be, at the end of the day, we want to be in the store, and we want to be connecting with customers. At my store, we have a lot of regulars who we love. We have a dog named Sam Adams who comes by and gets his pup cup every day, and I have noticed a similar trend as Diego in that, my ability to stop and just talk to someone, especially because sometimes people that's what they need. We have a lot of older customers who they don't have anyone else to talk to, and they come in for conversation and for us to ask about their lives, and they want to know about us. And all these expectations and all these changes in policy and the cup writing, and we're supposed to have 40-second window times, and all of that, while we just don't have the staffing to support it, makes it so the environment is turning hostile and is turning we are getting frustrated with customers unintentionally. And so I think that we want to be there, and we want to serve you, and we want to be, working in conditions that are livable, making a livable wage. And it's just we can't right now. And we are asking customers not to buy Starbucks while we're on strike. Go support your local coffee shop. Go support the real, the third places that are truly third places right now, until we can, get our contract and change the company for the better.
Right on, Diego.
At the end of the day, our core demands actually address the problems that we've been talking about so far, you know, the understaffing, if obviously we got more people working, then ideally you're going to have your drink out to you quicker. You'll have time to talk to some of your favorite baristas, you know, and you can't really complain about the rise of prices considering, oh, they're union now, you know, that's going to jack up the prices. Price of coffee keeps going up.
Right.
And it's not like that money is really going to the, you know, to the workers, to the reason why you show up every day. It's going to fund, you know, it's going to our CEO, it's going to the C-suite, paying for this private jet. You know, it's paying for all the AI implementations that have been happening behind the scenes. You know, it's not going to anything useful and anything that meaningfully changes your experience. And and you hear about a strike, you hear about your local Starbucks going on strike. That doesn't mean you go to the neighboring store, because what the company is banking on is that you just go to another store and undermine the actual strike effort, because at the end of the day, the company doesn't really care about you. They want your money, and they're not going to find out whether or not you have a long wait time until you're actually at the store.
Right on. Well, first of all, thank you for that. That was a whole lot of truth in a relatively short period of time. So I hope people sit with that, because that is spot on. Like, they don't care about you, they care about your dollars, right? And I say that to everyone that's listening. But when we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit more about your experience organizing, how that's happened, and also talk a little bit about why this union is so important. Like, why does it matter to the future of not just this company, but this country and working people across the country, that you guys get your fair contract? So for all those that are listening, you're tuning in to the Unmasked Agenda here on Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm happy to be joined by Brenna Nandel and Diego Franco, two strike leaders and bargaining leaders with Starbucks Workers United. Right on.
Rainier Avenue Radio.
Love food? Here are some storage tips to keep it fresh longer. Store cut fruits and vegetables in the fridge. Place in reusable containers. Keep bread in the freezer for longer storage. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your community connection to business success. Tune in weekly to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Listen and learn from local and national guest speakers, providing resources and knowledge for the everyday business owner. Women Empowerment Talk Radio, weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
So I needed to check my kids' immunization records for their school. My doctor told me I could get them quickly online, but I couldn't figure out how. Thankfully, I could turn to Link to Care WA for help. With Link to Care WA, I was able to learn how to use online health portals, use telehealth to talk to my doctor virtually, and even apply for jobs online. I called their free hotline and got help from a real person. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
On RainierAvenueRadio.world, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good, and who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on RainierAvenueRadio.world. Stories, songs, and get. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. Always up, baby, to your health.
A new law is helping people save more money on prescription drug costs. You may also be able to save with Medicare's Extra Help program. Your premium cost can be zero and your out-of-pocket expenses are low. Who should apply? Single individuals earning less than $23,000 a year or married couples earning less than $31,000 a year. Even if you don't think you qualify, you should still check out this program. Visit ssa.gov/extra help. Medicare costs are covered by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the station that cares about our community. Yeah.
So we are with Brenna and Diego, both from Starbucks Workers United. I'm really happy that all of you are tuning in so we can hear more about the union, so we can hear more about the struggle. Some of you probably see my shirt from the WGA, strike recently. Hey, Tony. So with that, yeah, let's just dive right in. So I want to kind of like just go for the jugular here because, well, okay, that's weird wording. But anyway, a lot of people know nothing about labor. A lot of people are not unionized, are not, just they don't know. So from your perspective, why is it so important to organize? Just in general, like, why is it important for you and your coworkers to organize? And also, of course, this is going out to all these folks that don't know anything about unions or may not have been a part of unions. And Brenna, if you want to go first, or Diego, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I can go. I think at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society, and all work is about exploitation. Like, it doesn't. One of my coworkers, very wise, once told me that there is no such thing as a good company to work for, because at the end of the day, small businesses, nonprofits, whatever, they're gonna exploit you as much as they can and like exploit your labor to the maximum. And so the importance of a union, importance of being able to, bargain for a contract is that you can advocate for yourself. You have a seat at the table and you can put a limit on how much a company can exploit you and, advocate for a fair wage for what you're doing. Because an executive like Brian Nickel has no idea what it's like to work a shift with 3 call-outs at, on a Sunday during the church rush at, any Starbucks. So, is he gone? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'll take over from there. The most of the American workforce is in retail, it's in service, fast food, it's in some variation of that. And most of these corporations, most of these companies organize within each other, create associations, they have lobbying groups, and they put people in power to then, keep us down. So while the company is telling us why should we organize, they're organizing amongst each other to keep our wages low, to keep the benefits very stagnant. And again, like I said, most people work in service, most people work in retail. The reason why trade jobs are seen as desirable, as seen as having wonderful benefits, that's because of unions. That's because of the organizing work and labor work that's been done prior to when any of us were born, frankly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why are a lot of nursing jobs seen as desirable and offer good benefits? Because of nursing unions. Why are teacher jobs seen with good compensation, good benefits? Because of teachers unions.
And hell, they're still fighting for that compensation.
And they're still fighting, yeah.
Yeah.
And
they are.
Yeah.
as corporations organize amongst each other, they put people that best benefit them in positions of legislative power. At the same time, tell us why should we organize?
Well, hold on. So you're telling me you don't have a political action committee that raises millions of dollars and you don't use it to influence elections?
I don't. And it's
Unfortunately.
something we've had. I've been out of the loop. I've
Yo,
been here a year and a
yo,
half.
you gotta catch up, man. Like, this man. Oh, okay.
You've heard it here, folks.
Yeah, right.
Same time as I am. So
I guess all of us just have to really pull ourselves up to by our bootstraps to the point where we, like you said, have millions of dollars to be able to organize amongst each other and put people in power. Diego, Brenna, you like raise really good points that remind me of a phrase that I share with my students. So I teach part-time, and often when we think about policy, we think about like all of these old people, predominantly old folks, let's be real, older people going to like these ornate buildings, making laws, and we just have to follow them. But Diego, I think you put it perfectly, where in reality, it's a lot more complex, but still easier to understand, where companies organize with each other and through lobbyists, through political action committees, through nonprofit organizations and dark money that they funnel to basically have a voice at the table, to be at, like Brenna, like you said, a place at the table. And it reminds me of this phrase I share with my students every quarter: you are either at the table or you are on the menu. And so for folks that might not know, I actually come from a labor background, and I've organized with unions on the East Coast and on the West Coast. I was really honored to be part of the Fight 15 here in Seattle. And, I say all that just to applaud the work that you're doing, but also, just to reinforce that I've seen it. The work that you guys are doing isn't easy. And, some may say that, oh, well, as a journalist, does that make you less objective? First of all, this is a talk show, so I'm allowed to say whatever the hell I want. We're allowed to have fun here, right? We're going to be fun, we're going to be lefty, we're going to be pro-union, and we're going to laugh and maybe, I don't know, maybe say some cuss words while we're doing it. Okay! So, there we go. Yeah, bringing back those old sound effects. That's right, DJ Juice. Yeah, fresh juice on the production slab. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about your experiences working with your coworkers, because as much as I want to give you your flowers, I also know that it's really hard, and also, let's be real, there are some people that are still scared. So how have you been able to work with your comrades in the union or just like in your stores to help people get over their fear and to really like build and organize? And whoever wants to jump in first, feel free.
I can start it. So I started organizing last year, beginning of June. Around the time our store manager at the time had just put in her 2 weeks. She had seen the writing on the wall with where the direction the company was going, wanted to get out of there. And during that summer, I had reached out to Starbucks Workers United. I got a hold of a staffer, and in that short summer, I had talked to my coworkers. Mind you, it helped that we were in transition of management, so you're not dealing with the fears of, oh, what if my manager does not like me, or our manager actually isn't that bad.
Yeah.
A lot of it came down to timing and utilizing the advantage we had in that. Most of my coworkers at the time, we had already worked together minimum a year. Plenty of us have been with the company much longer than that, so we knew each other more than any manager that was going to come home. That worked in our favor. I know, and just recently my store had some turnover. but still, it was the tools that I had in organizing and having those conversations with my tenured coworkers that I was able to talk through these fears with a bunch of these new hires, a bunch of rehires who didn't know much about our union, and still got them ready to go out on strike on Red Cup Day.
Right.
And, I was the first store. We were the first store in the company district in my area where I live that actually won their election.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that led to another store in the area organizing, winning their election as well.
Right on.
So, it's a trickle-down effect. We find that when one store wins and gets certified and federally recognized as part of our union, that it starts shaking the ground either in other stores or in other industries that happens to be geographically located to where the store. So we have a lot of momentum behind us, and we continue to cause a lot of momentum around us.
That's cool. That's what's up. Brenna?
Yeah. I think where I end up coming from is, in order to be an organizer, I think you have to have a lot of your coworkers' trust. Like, you have to build trust, and that's being a hard worker. That's in, showing up for your coworkers, staying, I'm not saying everybody has to stay late, but like being dependable and being someone your coworkers can trust. And I honestly benefited. I unionized at Eastlake, which is now a location, but we were early on in 2022, fresh off of like the Tale of Buffalo, which was the first store to unionize in the nation.
Which is also my hometown. Yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah. Yay! Buffalo, Seattle, man. But I was lucky enough in that kind of era, and I think it's still translating to today, but right out of COVID, a lot of, like, my store was heavily college-educated individuals who hadn't been able to find a job outside of Starbucks, and who really were able to explain to me like why it was important to unionize and how we could benefit. And that was in the tail of one of the companies I would say most glaring unfair labor practices, when they would schedule a meeting with you right after Buffalo, where you would sit down with a manager and a district manager and sometimes another district manager who you don't know, and they hand you your sheet of benefits and say, this is what we give you, and this is why you should be afraid of going away, and like this is why we benefit you. Which, I mean, they can't give anything away. That's illegal. Like,
that's pure intimidation.
Yeah, it's pure intimidation. But I was lucky enough. I was like the youngest person in my store, which was funny because I was 20. I wasn't like a baby, but they really, coworkers really were like, why can't we ask for more? Just because we have it, like, just because the benefits are good doesn't mean they're great, and like we should fight for better. And I've taken that lesson in taking over in my store, like stepping into being like lead role kind of post unionization when some of our organizers left, and just like being able to explain to people like things can be better, and all work is dignified, all jobs are real jobs, as much as that people want to say, oh, it's not a job. It is. It's dignified work, and we deserve a living wage. We deserve better. And also, in of our most recent political circumstances, the way this country is turning, it is more important than ever to be organized. It is more important than ever to have a contract, because we can enshrine in our contract labor law that might get taken away. Because, labor is there to stay. And so I think that has been a big motivator, and being able to hear out people's concerns and say, like, this is an opportunity for us to push back against not only the company, but the position the country is going, and fight back and, make for the retail and food industry, like service work, and pave the way for, a new wave of unions to come.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my next question was around the kind of political climate right now, because we just had an election here in Seattle. Katie Wilson won. And next day she came to your strike line, and I don't know if it was your strike line specifically, and said, hey, I'm standing with these workers. I'm not buying Starbucks. You're not either. And, of course, she got flack from the pro-business community here in Seattle, or the pro-business wing of the community in Seattle. It said he shouldn't be defaming a major employer here in the city, an iconic employer. But a lot of other people on social media have been saying, right on, that's our mayor. That's what we voted for, someone who's going to stand with working class Seattleites. So, Brenna, how did you feel about Mayor-elect Wilson coming to support workers, and also more importantly, what are you hoping Mayor-elect Wilson does during her first 100 days?
Oh, that is a good question. I mean, I was able to introduce Katie Wilson, and I was so excited. Yeah, it was the best day of my life. Just kidding. But I think
it's like when I get married and I introduce Katie to a crowd.
Exactly. But I mean, as we all know, what was crazy was we hadn't even had her as our rally speaker, because our staff were like, we can have her speak if she wins, and she didn't really officially win until the day before. So it was lucky that we got her there. But I, just in general, I am excited to see her just really, as someone, she lives in Seattle, she understands what it's like to, need support. People give her a bunch of flack for taking money from her parents to get child support, but child support in the city is incredibly expensive. And I think just in general, someone, I can't remember who was at the rally, said it is more important, the whole corporate flight idea, you tax businesses and they'll leave. But he said it's more important for us to protect the work conditions of the people in the city than to keep corporations here out of fear that they'll leave. Because we are working in terrible conditions. That's not a job worth fighting for. And so I think I'm just excited to see her, do what she can to make this city more livable, to keep prices, as low as she can, within her work, just really fight for working people, and in terms of the cost of living and rent and groceries, and just tax the rich. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Washington has a very terrible tax code. I think we should have income tax. Shoot me. But sales tax is a kind of classist system, because why are poor people paying the same amount of tax as rich people? So I'm just seeing how she can creatively support the people she works for, and change the city to be Seattle in tech. So bring it back and just help us fight back against the corporations that are making it into corporate heaven.
Indeed, absolutely. And you know what? I believe Mayor-elect Wilson's definitely supportive of that idea. I worked with her a long time ago on passing the first progressive income tax, and I mean, obviously it went to court and we weren't able to enact it, but I remember her leadership in that, so I'd be surprised if she's not supportive of that. And also Governor Bob Ferguson, since I'm off the clock, I'll say, Bob, are you listening? Because Diego, you might not know this, and Brenna, you started to mention it, but at the state level, we have a horribly regressive tax system that unfortunately that rolls downhill to local priorities. So speaking of priorities, it occurs to me that we talked a lot about your struggle and about the nature of the fight and what it's taken for all of you to really organize and deal with all of the repression from Starbucks management. But what are your demands? Because one of the pushback that we've seen in the press from Starbucks management, particularly, I remember I was reading an article from The Guardian, and Starbucks's their spokesperson, Jackie Anderson, she downplayed the strike. She said you represent only 4% of the partners. And this was the thing that really stuck with me. She said that the demands that the union is making are unreasonable and would adversely affect our stores. So why do each of you want a golden jet and all of your student loans paid for? Which, by the way, that sounds nice to me. But for anyone that's watching, that was a joke. Those are not their demands. But okay, we got a laugh track from that. Anyway, sorry, Diego, go ahead, my brother. Sorry.
No, you're good. They gave CEO Brian Nickel $96 million private jet. Barely been here a year. I've been here 6 years. Brenna's been here like 5 years. Where's our jets? For
real.
We've been around long enough. We just want to see the compensation of what that work has entitled us to. None of the CEOs none of the past 4 CEOs, no one in the C-suite can do the work that we do, let alone do it well.
Yeah.
And our demands aren't that high. What a barista makes in an hour is like the average order that goes out the drive-thru window. A couple of drinks, maybe a pastry, that equals about an hour's pay for someone working in that store.
Yeah.
Now imagine how many of those orders go out the window during half an hour, maybe an hour, let alone a whole day.
So what does a barista in Chicago and in Seattle make an hour respectively, versus like what are you guys asking for specifically?
I make 17 after you add in my tips. I make about 17 the hour, and now you take away the money I set aside for my 401k, take away the money that has to go into my health insurance. That money just gets taken out of my paycheck, so I'm left with a smaller sum of money. Last year's raises were about 2%, so a lot of us are making less money now than we were making last year, because our raises don't keep up with the rate of inflation.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Brenna, what about you?
Yeah. In the city of Seattle, baristas started Seattle minimum wage, which is a change. Starbucks for years always touted that they pay more than minimum wage. Like that was their one thing they could stand on. But they were forced, with the Fight for 15, which thank you for helping with that. You've totally benefited us.
Hey, you guys are
with
keeping
that.
up the legacy.
Exactly. But with that and with, current wages, baristas start at minimum wage. I am a shift supervisor, so I make a higher rate of pay. But I think $27.87 right now. And 2 of my roommates work for local coffee shops, and they're baristas, and they make $25 an hour starting rate. And that's pretty average from my understanding for most local coffee shops. So when Starbucks is saying, we're competitive, I think they, put out a statistic that we make $30 an hour, we make $30 an hour. I don't make $30 an hour. I wish. And I think another kind of statistic to follow off of Diego's, and this is kind of the math that I figured out. Last year, I think they gave us 1.5%, 2%. I got a 41-cent raise. And if you compare that to adding up coffee is 80 cents, and adding cold foam is $1.25 now, and a protein cold foam is $2. So you add one thing to your beverage, and you pay the price of 4 baristas raises. And that's one drink. And so I think that just goes to show, the money is there. And I think we have estimated that the cost of if we got everything we ever asked the whole entire world in our contract, it's less than 1 day's profit. It's $74 million, which is less than 1 day's profit for the company. And so every time they push that narrative, we are just asking for baristas not to be on food stamps, to be able to live off of we are given, the money we're given. We're asking for, one of my coworkers said she's asking for a savings account. All they want is a savings account so that they can, put all that money to rent and go and have fun, say a day trip to, rent out a cottage on the coast just for a day, And so I think that is like the root of it, is that the money is there, customers are paying the cost, and they're unwilling to give it to anybody but people like Brian.
Right. So in that case, we are a couple minutes out from the end of the show. So I just wanted to kind of wrap all this up. And I was wondering if, because we try to blend, bring in pop culture, politics, nerd fandoms, the whole genesis of the show is we're going to talk about issues that matter to myself, that matter to my co-host Tony, who's out sick tonight. Hope you're feeling better, bro. And we're gonna have fun. Like, we met in a comic book store, and like, we have great banter. Like, let's have fun with it, right? So if you were to compare the CEO Brian to any supervillain, it could be Marvel, DC, or in an indie comic, if you want to throw that out there, any supervillain. What supervillain would you compare him to?
I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
President Snow. President Snow from the Hunger Games. And I'm talking when we were inside his head in the prequel, and when we saw him in Mitch's book, and the whole time. That is who Brian Nichol is.
Right. He has multiple levels, but they're all bad. Yes.
All twisted. He might fake you out with his, charismatic presence or whatever, because people simped over young Haymitch. But if you're inside his head, I assume it's pretty dark in there.
I think that says a lot too to workers that are saying, "Oh, well, this is a progressive company." No, you're working for President Snow. Remember that. Might look fashionable, but Anyway, Diego, go ahead. You got the last word, my man.
Man, I can't think of one. I'm trying to think of a supervillain, really dorky, really lame.
Right.
I'm drawing a blank. See, now these are the tough questions I wish I got prepared for.
With the way he snaps his fingers and disappears workers, he could be, but I think Thanos' motivations are a little better.
He could be like an unjuiced Thanos, like he skipped leg day.
I was thinking maybe like a Doc Ock, Green Goblin looking type of fellow. Like I don't get what you're doing. You look a little weird.
Right. It's like maybe, just figure out some stuff in your life, like try to, I don't know, go to therapy or something and figure out why you have to take out your problems on workers that are currently propping up your company, and making sure that like people in our community have a third place to go to feel good and to obviously stay caffeinated, because let's be real, for all of those people who are watching that might still be a little bit on the fence, your caffeine depends on workers being able to get a fair contract. And more importantly, Starbucks is a multi-billion-dollar company in which workers like Diego and Brenna make possible. And particularly here in Seattle, where we consider iconic. Well, Brenna, Diego, you guys are the icons. I would give you an award if I had one, but alas, I wasn't able to make the Union Mint shop today. And with that, we are out of time. But thank you so much for joining us, guys. And solidarity to you from Seattle, Diego. Solidarity to you, Brenna. Hopefully I see you out in the picket lines. I'm going to try to come through and support personally. And I hope everyone else does as well. Also, don't buy Starbucks. Not until they get a fair contract. And with that, this has been Cliff. And this is the Unmasked Agenda. Stay courageous, y'all. Don't back down.